and I have finally finished the Stuart Scout tank. I used to say it was 158, but it's not. It's 156, 28mm scale. And this is designed for any war game specifically that uses 28mm figures. The most popular, I think, is Bolt Action. This was a really interesting kit that was meant to be done for the Rubicon Models group build. And I am well late. It should have been done in December, and I'm nowhere near December. We're now in March when I finally finished it. That wasn't really any fault of the model. It was partly workload, but also I massively overcomplicated things. When I came to this, I kept bouncing between two ideas. Painting it up as best I possibly could, like from a show point of view, show quality sort of thing, not, for your shelf, or for the game. And I kept bouncing in between these ideas while working on it, and I just overcomplicated it. And the more I thought about it, the less work I actually accomplished. I think either way you could do it. If you weren't going to play the game, and this is, like, that's a novel. So I mean, she's a small model. So if you wanted to do a diorama, even on a novel, an average paperback size, you've got quite a decent sort of diorama size there. So if you wanted to try to spend time and make this into something really nice, you totally could. In the end, I went with trying to make it good for tabletop, mainly because this is going into my son's army. He's playing Americans, which was a little surprising, as we're in Canada, and I thought he would lean more towards Commonwealth. But when we got him, he chose the initial D-Day pack, which was Germans and American paratroopers. So that's what he picked out, and since then he's been going with Americans, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was just a surprise. So this was really cool because this is going in his army then, the little scout tank. So I painted up more with the tabletop in mind, and I tried to do it in a way that was attractive, but also these are going to get touched a lot. That's the one difference between your show quality that you put on your shelf and a wargaming model, sort of thing, is that you have to be able to touch them. You're always moving them. You're moving them constantly because it's a game. You're moving it every time. You're changing position. When units get destroyed, you're taking them off the table, so they get touched constantly. And if you paint it to a show sort of standard, they tend to deteriorate quickly. So there's more varnish on this than I would normally put on one. That's to try to protect the paint, try to protect some of the extra detail, trying to protect the decals, which were quite nice actually. The decals were quite nice. The only complaint I have, I couldn't find a complete decal placement guide. Now, you do have on the back, they show you the decal sheet and two variants, one of the M8 Scott and one of the M5A1 Stuart. But both of these only show the side view, and there's a lot of decals. They give you a lot of decals. That's a big plus. It's nice. They give you a lot of decals, but I didn't know where they all went. So I did some online searching and looking, and sort of went somewhere in between. Now this is not an 100% accurate tank, I can tell you now. This is partly because Kieran didn't care. He wanted it to be accurate in a sense, but not completely accurate. And his reasoning, considering he's 6, I thought was interesting. He said it didn't matter to him if it was completely accurate, as the battles that we'll be doing in Bolt Action might not always be where that particular tank was. And he wasn't meaning even Stuart's. He was meaning C-14 might not have been at this particular crossroads at that time, or it might not have been involved in this particular engagement, even if Stuart's were that one. So I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it. So I've tried to keep it reasonably accurate with decals and that, but it's not. This is not a completely 100% historically accurate vehicle. Great fun to paint. I used a mixture of spray can initially to give it the overall green, and then I've painted multiple different greens really thinned down. And this was just so they would give a little bit of colorization. There was dry brushing and pigments at the end, and then the decals, and then varnishing. This should have been done ages ago. It really should have, and sorry to Rubicon for my tardiness. I enjoyed it. I do recommend this if you're looking for some small projects that are fun. The Rubicon models, if they build up like this one, are a gang of fun and totally worthwhile putting your time into. And if you play Bolt Action, then for sure these are a great addition to have. The only thing some people have said, like they didn't like the Stuarts and that because they're not very well armoured and that, and it's true. These are a light tank. They had lots of trouble themselves when thrown into main combat conditions, but on the Bolt Action battlefield, if you use them well, they operate very well as scouts, and they still cause a fair amount of damage. If you can catch a enemy infantry unit not in loads of cover, you can cause them a fair bit of trouble. Two different machine guns and the cannon can cause a lot of headache. So they're a worthy unit to have on your list still, I think. And this comes with two variants. You can either do the M8 artillery piece or the Stuart. And we sat down with Kieran, and he said he liked the idea of the Stuart more. He liked the look of it. So that's what we did. So yeah, I do recommend these kits. They're great fun, and I think they're worth the money.